Good afternoon, everyone. It is 12:05 and it's a good time to get going. Welcome. Happy New Year to you all. Welcome to the January 2022 Humboldt Park Chicago Avenue Community Roundtable. Let's just dive into things. Spelling me here with the Planning Department for City of Chicago. And have the following as our agenda for today. Just a quick welcome to all those on the call. An Invest Southwest Roundtable survey update, followed by the Chicago Recovery Grant Program, and lastly, update on We Will Chicago. So without further ado, just wanted to welcome all of our normal attendees, composed of community members and city staff, some of which you see here on the screen. I don't see that either of the aldermen are on the line. So I think we'll just proceed straight into our first item, which is the Invest Southwest Roundtable survey, and Caroline from LIST to give us a little bit of an update there. Caroline, feel free to take it away.
Thanks, Ernest. Good afternoon, everybody. I'll be very quick. I was at your roundtable, I think last month or the month before, talking about this survey. This is the first step in a process to really get some feedback and understanding about how the roundtables are going and what we can do together to make sure that they are really a genuine and effective forum for feedback and input and engagement. So we put out this survey. I've only gotten about 4 responses from West Humboldt Park so far. So this is my plea to please fill out this survey. It should just take about 10 minutes. Ernest has the links up in both English and Spanish on the screen. I'm also going to put them in the chat. So please click on the link that pertains to you, whether you're more comfortable in English or Spanish, so you have that tab open and are able to work on that survey as soon as you're done with this meeting or during the meeting. Just want to get as many responses as we can before we move into the next phase, which would be kind of a live conversation. But the surveys will really help us lay the groundwork for that conversation. And so we would love to hear from you. I'll stay on for a few minutes if there's any questions or feedback about this. Otherwise, please click the link and fill things out. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Any questions about the survey from anyone?
This is Adrienne. I'll make sure we push it.
Thank you, Adrienne.
Right. Well, thanks so much. So up next, some department updates. First up is the Chicago Recovery Plan Community Development Grant, which Jim Harbin will be covering. Jim?
Thanks, Ernest, and good afternoon, everyone. This particular update should be just that, an update. It's called the Chicago Recovery Plan Community Development Grant. We are calling it internally the Chi Recovery Grant. And even if you Google this particular grant program as Chi Recovery Grant, you will get that at the top of your page in terms of the website, but we have all the information I'm going to go over today. For those of you who I have not had the pleasure of meeting, I am Jim Harbin. I'm a Deputy Commissioner here with the Department of Planning and Development, and I'm thrilled to go over and to provide a quick reminder and update about this wonderful grant program that we just launched earlier this month. What we plan to do today is to go over what the plan is, talk about the grant at a very 10,000-foot level. We're going to talk about the eligibility, the process in order to engage the application, and I'm even going to give you a few tips so one who's interested in doing this application can see where the focus is going to be in terms of our selection process. And then lastly, at the end, I'm going to be happy to take any of your questions. Next slide, Ernest. So, where we find ourselves today is literally as a city and as a municipality, looking at $1.2 billion to go ahead and spend in our great city and with our residents. And as you can see, there's two tiers here that we are focusing our investments. One is in equitable economic recovery, and the other one is thriving and safe communities. And if you just slightly hit the next slide, Ernest, you can see what's highlighted. This is where the Department of Planning is going to be focusing its investment. Community development, small business and workforce support, and community climate investments. But I need to make sure that I signal that other city agencies and other city departments are going to have their own version of investment, and for you guys to keep a lookout. And we certainly will try to bring those type of investments here to this platform so that you guys are aware of their focus on investment. Next slide. So our aim has not changed. The purpose of this program is to expand upon our department's investments and support catalytic local investment and local development. We still are aiming at strengthening local corridors, enhancing vitality of neighborhoods, and driving equitable economic recovery as we do so. Next slide. And so what we've decided with this particular grant is to try not to recreate the wheel, if you will. We have two wonderful programs that I'm sure everyone on this call has been familiar with. We have our Small Business Improvement Fund, or SPIF, as we call it internally here in the office. And we have our Neighborhood Opportunity Fund grant program, which internally we call NOF. And what we actually did was combine a lot of the best of both worlds, if you will, and then sprinkled a little bit of extra on this grant in order to make it robust. So the uses for this grant is the same as we would have for those two programs I just alluded to: expansion and renovation, new locations for startups or existing businesses, new construction and vacant properties. There are actually two things to note on this program. One, it mirrors the NOF program where there's two tiers. There is the grant program that helps support projects looking for under $250,000, and we have support for grants looking for more than that. The difference is that we go up to $5 million on this particular program. And then secondly, we also have this program position where it can help support up to 75% of those eligible costs. And I'm going to talk about those eligible costs in a minute. Next slide. So what does that eligibility look like? Well, first of all, who is the application open to? It's still open to commercial businesses and is like NOF. It's still open to light manufacturing, like the Small Business Improvement Fund, but it's also open to those mixed use profiles, like the program we just released late last year called the TIF Purchase Rehab Program. And what I mean by mixed use is simply those projects that have commercial space on the bottom and residential spaces on the top. This program can help support those type of projects. There's a limitation on our TIF Purchase Rehab Program that we released late last year, where you had to trigger at least 5 residential units. That no longer applies for this particular program. There could be a single unit, there could be 10 units or more. We still want to consider those type of projects under this grant program. Business owners, entrepreneurs, property owners, community developers, community-based organizations are all eligible. One of the things that is important to note in terms of where this program sticks out from the other two is that applicants from all areas of Chicago or the entire geography of this city are eligible to apply for this particular grant program. There's no limitation by TIF district, no limitation by the south or west sides of Chicago, no limitation by qualified investment areas. What are those expenses? The same rogues gallery of expenses that we've had for the other two programs. Besides major exterior and interior renovations, I think what's important to note is that fourth bullet, where we can help support architectural and engineering fees. And again, I use the analogy, if you can pick up the building and shake it, whatever fell out of that building would not be eligible for this program. What sticks to those bones, what sticks to that building is what we normally call eligible expenses. Next slide. So just to summarize real quickly, we have no limitation on geography for this particular grant program. It's not specific to corridors or districts. Light manufacturing can be included as does mixed use residential projects. And even one of the nuances to the NOF program, where we literally were signaling that before you apply for the grant program for your commercial space, there had to be a tenant in mind, particularly if you were a property owner who was not going to operate that commercial space. A tenant had to be earmarked or identified in your application. In this particular grant program, we are no longer looking for that. Next slide. So how will the selection process go? Well, not too much differently than the other two programs. We're still looking for catalytic projects that have a strong local impact in terms of jobs and amenities and services. We're still looking for projects in historically disinvested areas. That hasn't changed. We are still focusing on making sure that there's an equitable look at these grant applications as they come across the table. And then we're also looking for projects that have that momentum and that are expected to break ground this year. And, you know, we are prioritizing those. If you're ready and you've been looking at a project and your project is greenlit to go, and this grant program can help support not only you getting out the ground, but getting to the finish line, those projects are going to get special consideration. And then site control is preferred. It's not necessary. However, we are looking for those projects who can signal that there's a clear path to that site control. Next slide. So the application process, two things to note. We've got two tiers. Once you go to our website, and I'm going to give you what that website is in just a second, you either put in for the small grant program or the large grant program. That is no different than we would ask you to do in terms of our Neighborhood Opportunity Fund or NOF program. But I think it's something important to know in terms of our deadlines. What we have is what we are calling a rolling application. And what that simply means is that we're going to be taking applications for the good part of the year here in 2022. What those dates that you see are listing dates in which we will have a cutoff where we will start reviewing the applications that came in up to that point. So for instance, the applications that are coming into the office now on January 31st, we will take that batch and our review team will start evaluating those applications. But February 1st, we are still taking applications. There's going to be no open period, if you will. The applications are open all year. And we're just going to use these dates to demarc when we start selecting batches to begin reviewing. Next slide. So this portal is important, and I'm going to put that information into the chat, chicago.gov/Shy Recovery Grant. And as I alluded to at the beginning, Shy Recovery Grant, if you Google that, you're going to have our website come to the top of your search. And at that website, you will be able to do a couple of things that we think are important. One, you'll be able to take a project assessment. There's going to be a series of questions. I believe we have 10 questions where it's going to ask you to complete, and it's going to give you and us a sense in terms of how ready you are to go into the complete application. And part of what we want to do is to make sure that A, you're not going into that longer application unnecessarily. If there's still things you have to do, that assessment is going to help you identify what those are. You can also begin the online application once you get through that assessment. So that assessment will allow you, given that you get green lit after doing the assessment, will take you directly to the application. Next slide. And the same for the large grant program. You will see where there are two portals within the website in terms of which particular grant program you're after. But we think the information there is pretty self-explanatory, and I'm going to also be leaving contact information in the chat just in case you have any issues in terms of connecting. Next slide. So a couple of tips. One, as I alluded, we are looking for readiness. We're looking for those projects that are demonstrating that they are ready to go this year. So site control, the applicant doesn't need to have it, but there needs to be a path. You need to be able to articulate that you are definitely on track in order to get in control of that particular site. Your plan for construction, we're looking for things like dates you can start. We're looking for timelines in terms of how long you think your project will last. Itemized cost. We certainly want to see a budget, but what strengthens that budget if you demonstrate, for instance, that you've had more than one contractor look at the work and look at the scope and provide you alternates in terms of making sure you are getting the best bang for your buck in terms of getting that work done. And then equity. We certainly are looking for projects to demonstrate that they have diverse contractors at the table and that they are open to utilizing that diversity as they complete the project. Next slide. Community engagement, as you guys well know, is something that the Department of Planning has leaned into, particularly as it relates to Invest South and West. We intend to expand that across the entire city. So in other words, no matter where that application or that project is, has that applicant reviewed any published community plans for that particular area and understand what that area neighborhood goals are. We are looking for projects and applicants who have done some community engagement, who have done some socialization with either the local community-based organizations, the local elected officials, and make sure that they are getting support from those constituents in terms of their project. And then corridor condition. I always tell the story of one applicant a couple of years ago who signaled that they're the only sandwich shop in the area. And our due diligence and our review process simply had us do a Google search and found that there were 2 other sandwich shops on the same block as that applicant. So do your homework, make sure you understand the conditions of your area. We are looking for strong applications. Next slide. And design. If there's another pivot or another signal that you have probably been sensing from our department, design matters. And so there's a couple of principles that we are looking for as it relates to design. One, we're still looking for equity and inclusion. Is there fairness? Is there diversity in your contractors, in your design team? Innovation. Our commissioner has a keen eye, and he is have that trickle down to his team. So we're looking out for that innovation in your design and how it's going to have an impact on that corridor. A sense of place. Celebrating the community in which you're in. Are you aligning with those goals in terms of what the community is asking for in terms of having projects actually being invested in their geography? And then sustainability. One of the things that is growing, as most of you on this call know, that commitment to being environmentally aware and making sure that we're culturally aware of that financial longevity for projects that are being invested in our communities. And then communication. What is your project suggesting as it comes to fruition? What is your project saying to the community and to that corridor? We want to be and want to hear from you in terms of that articulation, in terms of what you intend for your project to do for that area. Next slide. So we have resources for applicants who are looking to tap into this program. There is a site of community development grant resources on the Shy Recovery Grant Program that I help link to city resources. So we can assist with materials that would help enhancing your readiness, demonstrating your financial feasibility. We've got resources that help you articulate your construction planning and how you can show your catalytic impact. And we even have resources that can help with your business planning. We also have our delegate agencies and Adrian and Nefertari on the line, and they certainly can help assist, particularly projects that are going into the Humboldt Park area. So next slide. So with that, I am happy to take any of your questions. And I'm going to ask Ernest to just go to the very next slide so you guys can see the portal again, just in case you need to write that down. But we are looking to have as much participation in this grant as we can muster. And more importantly, we're looking for good applications that are ready to go now. So if you're ready, please don't hesitate to go ahead and put in your application. We're looking forward to seeing it. Thank you so much for your time today, guys, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Hi, Jim, this is Adrienne. I do have a question. So we do have businesses that have applied for other grants, and you may have already addressed this. They may have applied for anything with the NOF, the SIP. Does that limit their can they still put in an application if they have already submitted applications and maybe even received awards through those applications?
Yeah, the short, that's a very nuanced question, Adrienne, and I certainly understand it. The short answer is you certainly can put in the application, but we're reviewing the application in hand as opposed to the application in the bush, if that makes sense. So if you already have an application in from an OF, yeah, it's going to get triggered as any other application comes in. We're going to be looking at that particular grant program because we're in the process of doing those reviews. I will argue this though, particularly with NOF. We just made an announcement a couple of weeks ago about the new round or the last round from last year. And so, yeah, if you're in that mix or even within an application that's been awarded previous to that, yeah, you're in pretty good shape. But again, you know, people are still going to do it whether I say they don't or not. So you're free to do that, but we're still going to be taking a look at that initial application. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Do you have a question? I have Mr. Franklin here with me.
Sure.
I don't know if you have a question.
Yo, Franklin Williams, 3700 West Chicago Avenue. I just received a grant. Thank you. And I have several other buildings in the same block that was not from that particular grant. And you just really answered the question that I want to look forward to. Looking forward to 3700 block, looking glamorous. So that question was answered beautifully.
Okay. Well, listen,
All right.
I'm going to stick around. I'm going to put my contact information in the chat. If something comes to mind later, don't hesitate to reach out, guys. Thank you again for your time today.
Oh, one more thing, Mr. Harvey. Are you sharing this? Is your PowerPoint going to be? Can you send that out?
Yeah, so Ernest usually sends out this PowerPoint for each roundtable a few days afterwards. However, let me say this: if you go to Shy Recovery Grant, or you know, if you go to that website, you're going to see the webinar that we did on January 6th. That is there and that's loaded. You're also going to see a list of frequently asked questions based on that webinar and subsequently questions that have come in since then with answers. So I'd strongly suggest you go to that website. You will see this presentation and then some. But yeah, Ernest is going to send a copy of this out to this group.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ernest.
Thanks, Jim. And yeah, at that link that you see on the screen there, you will be able to get to the website and get more information on the Chicago Recovery Plan Community Development Grant. But equally, as Jim has mentioned, soon after we're done, I'll send out a copy of our presentation. Definitely check out the website. Video presentation from earlier this month is there, as well as other resources. All right. So up next is Gabby with We Will Chicago.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for including me in today's roundtable. I just wanted to provide an update on We Will Chicago and introduce it to some of you who may not be familiar with what it is at this point. Next slide. So what is We Will Chicago? We Will Chicago is an ambitious 3-year process to create a citywide plan for the future of Chicago. A lot of you may already be familiar with neighborhood plans, or perhaps you contributed to quality of life plans specific to Humboldt Park. What we're trying to do is take that process and put it onto a citywide level, because there are some of much larger issues that we really need to address as a full city. We can't really just talk about them on a small community area or neighborhood level. So one of the things that we're hoping this plan can do is kind of develop things like criteria and metrics for public policy decision-making. We want to find a way to formalize standards for neighborhoods and regional plans as well. This document could become a guidance on ways to align budgets and things like capital projects and other policy priorities. We could develop some new ideas for public financing tools like the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund or the Small Business Improvement Fund, or even things like the Chicago Recovery Plan that Jim just presented on. And we also want to try to standardize civic and community engagement opportunities and input into public decision making. So what is kind of set up with Invest Southwest and this roundtable approach is very unique to this specific program of Invest Southwest. So we're looking at possibly finding ways to kind of take things that are happening on this kind of Invest Southwest level and possibly do it in other parts of the city as well. Next slide. So We Will Chicago has basically been kind of going through a pre-planning process in 2020. Then in 2021, we kind of put together a number of what we're calling research teams to help build out the plan. And in the pre-planning, we came up with this structure for the plan. So there are 2 principles, equity and resiliency, 5 themes, which are historical reckoning and trust building, the evaluation of equity impacts, community engagement, accountability, and interagency and cross collaboration, and then 7 pillars. And the 7 pillars we'll get to, but first I wanted to kind of share kind of what are our definitions of equity and resiliency. So next slide. So the definition that we're using for equity is both an outcome and a process. This results in fair and just access to opportunity and resources that provide everyone the ability to thrive. And the next one, resiliency. Resiliency is the ability of individuals, institutions, businesses, and other systems within a community to survive, adapt, and grow despite chronic stresses or shocks it experiences. So a truly resilient city is not only expected to perform well in good times, but also recover quickly after challenges. And those challenges can be anything from, the current public health crisis that we've been living through with the COVID-19, or it could be something, like climate change, which is much larger, or even, public safety as well. Next slide. So these are the 7 pillars of the plan that were kind of developed earlier in the process. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory, like arts and culture. Economic development means, businesses and also, job opportunities, how do we train and develop a workforce. Environment, climate, and energy, it talks about the environment, it talks about, things to climate change possibly, or, how neighborhoods deal with pollution. And it also talks about, nature areas and, how do we preserve parks or waterways, those types of systems that we all rely on. Housing in neighborhoods is, housing. So we're talking about affordable housing a lot of the time, and also kind of how our neighborhoods built out, what is accessible within a 10 or 15-minute walk from your neighborhood. Lifelong learning is both about kind of, your traditional education. So those from, preschool all the way through 12th grade, community college, university, but also kind of informal ways that we learn. So how do we share skills, amongst our neighbors? How do we learn from our elders? What other types of kind of opportunities do we have to learn and grow individually? Public health and safety is, of course, about public health, and so our physical wellness, also mental health, and safety, is kind of how safe and protected do you feel within your neighborhood. And then transportation and infrastructure. Transportation is how do we get around the city, what type of bike infrastructure is there, what are public transportation options, if you're somebody who uses a wheelchair, how easy it for you to get around. And infrastructure includes things like bridges and how do we maintain our roads, but also things like, broadband internet access. Next slide. So this is kind of the structure of how We Will is put together right now. So since pretty much July of 2021, we have had groups of people who were, we put out an open application process in May of 2021 to kind of invite people to apply to be part of these research teams. And we recruited, I think in total, it's around 120 or so different volunteers and also people from nonprofit organizations who are community partners, and they have been developing kind of the early concepts of this plan. So in this year, we're going to be rolling out some of the ideas that they've put together through public engagement opportunities such as wewillchicago.com. You can go and you'll be able to take surveys and kind of respond to some of the things that they put together, as well as a street ambassador program that we'll be hopefully rolling out this summer, where we'll be able to go to events that are happening in your neighborhood. If you're a business and, we could do a pop-up, somewhere to kind of start talking to people. So we're going to be developing that kind of summer through October engagement plan in the next couple of months. We also have an advisory committee of volunteers and community partners who are kind of helping align the plan kind of across all of the pillars, because, there is a lot of intersection between things like public health and the environment, or, economic development and the arts. So there's, lots of opportunities to kind of work across pillars that they're helping us align on. We also have interagency committees who have representatives from, the Chicago Park District, from CHA, from the CTA, so that we're really kind of talking across all the parts of the public sector to kind of collaborate on this process. And then we also, of course, have review of this final plan from the mayor, from aldermen, and some of the commissions like the Chicago Plan Commission, who may formally kind of adopt this process. So next slide. So as I mentioned, 2022 is really going to be our year of public engagement. So we are planning to kind of have a draft of our plan recommendations. These are, public policy recommendations together by June. And we will be kind of launching a really huge opportunity to collect public input and comment. And we want to hear what you agree with, things that you disagree with out of that plan. And then, in the fall, we'll kind of reconvene, take all of that feedback that has been collected. And then in 2023, we will have a final version of the plan that will be proposed and presented to the elected officials and to the different commissions for possible final review and implementation. So next slide. So ways that you're going to be able to get involved. So but before we have this kind of final policy plan, we're actually currently right now working on a survey that's going to be available probably late February, early March, that has some of these kind of early concepts or goals of what each of these pillar kind of policy recommendations will be. And we want to collect all kinds of public input on that. As I mentioned this summer, we're really going to gear up and have a lot of opportunities for neighborhood events. So, if you have, any large gatherings, please let us know. And, we can possibly send out a team to kind of be there. And we're going to work with the park district to do some of, they have the nights out in the park, to be present at those, to get kind of community input. And we also have tools on our website for you to hold kind of smaller group discussions about some of these recommendations and things that are coming together, and brainstorm some of your own. So if you have a block club or you want to get together with some friends and family, there are materials also available in Spanish and simplified Chinese to kind of hold your own meetings. And then on our website, you can sign up to receive updates about We Will, and share comments and kind of anything that you would like to, with ideas on policies that relate to the pillars. So thank you for letting me speak to you all today. And if you have any questions, you can email us at wewill@cityofchicago.org, and we'd be happy to collaborate on any ideas that you have. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Gabby. Hold for any questions for Gabby.
Ernest, were you able to put together the poll, or if not, I can just ask.
No, I wasn't, but
That's okay.
this extra slide.
Yeah, that's it. So we just, if you want to write in the chat, like if there's one of these pillars that you're very interested in kind of digging into and having, a more built out meeting around, please just drop in the chat which one you're interested in, and we can kind of follow up and possibly plan out another roundtable meeting or a separate meeting with the same group to kind of really dig into some of these issues. So thank you.
So much, Gabby. All right, so that's pretty much it for this month's roundtable. Just wanted to cover our next meeting date, which will be February 23rd. That'll be the date of the next neighborhood roundtable. And there may be some email updates as to potential another meeting. But when that is set, we'll let you know. That would be with regards to the Southwest RFP site, the development team. So thanks again for those who dropped in the chat their interest in knowing more about the We Will Chicago pillars that Gabby has covered, as well as check the chat for info from Jim and Caroline with regards to the Shy Recovery Grant, as well as the survey for the roundtables that we really need folks to input their feedback on, so that we can really strengthen these roundtables accordingly. So that being all, thank you all again for attending this month, and we'll see you next month.